Welcome to this general session, which is reflections from an initial Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Program. And we're going to have three of our original programs present today, and we're going to hear from Florida Atlantic University. We're going to hear from Santa Fe College and from McFadder Technical College. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Brady. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to present, inviting Florida Atlantic to present, and thank you all for participating to come in to the session. 10:30 in the university world. I know not everybody's university here, college and tech programs, but in the university world, 10:30 is still considered early in the morning. It's not quite dawn yet, but those of us who teach evening classes go on and on. I do want to share some information about the program at Florida Atlantic, the Academy for Community Inclusion. A couple of words about the how we started the program, the kind of meaningful credentials that we do and will continue to operate, obstacles that we encountered, and some of the obstacles that we resolved, and some that we haven't. The whole issue of how to accomplish faculty buy-in, and then where will we be in the next 5 years. We started our program in January of 2016 with a generous contribution from a foundation to help us jumpstart the program to move forward. I'm a department chair in addition to helping to put this academy together. And one of the things that I've learned as a generic administrator is you can't just ask people to do more. You have to change the structure of the infrastructure, the organization somewhat in order to support and sustain new programs. So it took 6 or 7 years of effort and kicking around and looking around and poking the bear, trying to come up with resources before we had at least adequate sources to get started for a program. January 2016 for the students. And since then, we've adopted a single time of the year in fall for all new admissions. We started with one campus, a very lovely campus that FAU has in Jupiter, which is small, rational, logical. People are generally nice to one another. And after a few years, developed at a second campus. We now have 2 campuses in Boca Raton, and those of you who know will recognize that Boca Raton is not New York City, although it kind of sounds like it sometimes. But it's faster, and it's moving, and it's crowded, and people fight for traffic spaces and things like that. So quite unlike the nature of a quiet campus. We admit by cohort. We've admitted anywhere from 9 to 18 people in each cohort. Initially, we were admitting 9 to 15 or so at one campus. Now we're admitting as many across 2 campuses. So our numbers are increasing. Our first graduate was in December of 2017. Currently, we have somewhere between 42 and 50 students, and you'd think that numbers would be concrete enough to be able to count 1 equals 1, but that's not always the case. So I always say, people say, well, how many do you have, or how many of these do you do? And I say, well, depends on how you count it. So we currently have, we started with 50 students that we admitted for this fall. We're running around 43, 44, but we also admit 1 or 2 people that we don't bring into the scholarship program that don't qualify technically for as ID, but certainly need the program supports that we offer. We've had 23 graduates so far. as of this past summer. We'll have 5 or 6 more coming up this December. Students apply to FAU as they apply to any other program, if admitted, and that's a big if. If they're admitted, then they selected and they participate in ACI. So by the language that I'm describing, you can tell that it's we don't admit everybody that applies. If they're admitted, they pay regular tuition and they pay regular fees. So it's they're going to college when they come to FAU and the academy. What kind of the meaningful credentials do we have? All of the Florida CTPs are different in the way they offer their employment credentials. We took a broad sense of this. We developed 3 credential programs that are modeled after the basic notion behind a degree. All the credentials, all the courses are approved through faculty governance. We develop a course that goes through the department, that goes through the college, that goes through the university, that goes through the faculty senate, and someday is stamped by the board of trustees, the board of governors, and finally ends up in a college catalog. So we are very much the you're going to college model of this. The 3 credentials that we offer, a credential in supported employment, a credential in supported community access, and a credential in supported community living. And each of those supported employment is required for all of our students. That's the big outcome, is folks are going to graduate with a job. Students have the option to add a 2nd or the 3rd credential, and each program has unique courses, has its own set of courses. We originally designed with the idea that maybe a full-time student would complete a program in 2 years, but you know what happens? These guys are in class for a year and they decide, no, they're not going to finish in 2 years. They're going to go 2.5, or maybe 3, or maybe 3.5, or maybe 4. So we've had students that complete 2 credentials, 2 certifications, and some that complete 3 certifications. But the supported employment is the one that all must take. How did we get to the credentials and the courses and the experiences? Well, we took a step back and say, what's the fundamental purpose of higher education? Preparation for life, preparation for the greater good. And from our perspective, that says that as a university, with this general approach, that it wouldn't be enough for us to just offer an industry certification or a badge or just a specific job training activity. That, like degree programs, we wanted to prepare our students for broader outcomes, and not just a specific type of a job. So our credential in supported employment, for instance, students have input to what they're going to, and experiences with different types of employment. And they know before they go very far in the program that these are jobs that they thought they were going to like, but they don't. Or these are jobs that they think they might like, but they haven't tried it yet. So they have a range of different types of activities. We want our participants to be educated, to be employable, to be self-determined. And we understand that content is going to be learned not just in courses, but in experiences, and not just in employment experiences and internships and practicum, but in clubs, and in by going to the football game, by having peers that they're going to lunch with, going to the cafeteria, hanging out in the borough, shooting pool, throwing the frisbee with on the lawn, and other activities that are, excuse me, that are maybe by some taxpayers not thought to be regular college experience, but by those of us who ever went to college. We know that it's really important. The different types of obstacles. I want to bring up the concept that obstacles for an inclusive program, a post-secondary program and educational program are probably not much different than other institution for higher ed degree programs. I think the obstacles are about the same. None of us have enough money. None of us have enough time. There's always skepticism from the public. There's always skepticism from some of our colleagues. Faculty and staff who run degree programs, who work in degree programs, and who work and run in IPSI programs. They're drawn in 100 different directions. And there's always the temptation to do more. And sometimes it's a self-initiated overwork, and sometimes it's not. And sometimes our payoff systems don't support what we're really trying to do. Sometimes they do. So I think from that perspective, the obstacles are fairly similar in PSEs as they are in any other kind of degree programs. To counter the obstacles, there's some basic principles. Hire the best, hire the folks that you can hire, and make sure that everybody's on the same page, identifying what makes the program unique. We didn't want to look like everybody else's program, or we didn't want to look like the private organization down the street who has a post-secondary program. We didn't want to look like that. We wanted to have guiding principles that match the purpose, which is those general things we talked about a little earlier. Being educated, being trained, having experiences, getting the big picture as well as the little pictures. So the principles and the programs, there needs to be match there, but then we also need policies and procedures that match. So for example, if our thing is about community employment, but then we never have integrated community employment during the training program, then we're not matching there. So we've got to make sure that our policies about who we admit are going to be able to follow up. They're going to be able to graduate based on the principles that we've established about you'll be in the community, you'll be employed, you'll have opportunities. Same with our procedures. It's really difficult sometimes. Those of us who came from the special ed roots into this program, not all of us did, but those of us who did, we tend to be a little protective, a little paternalistic, a little maternalistic. And it's time for that to end. But it's also time to keep in mind Nirji's concept, Robert Persky's concepts, the things like the dignity of risk. You don't make progress, you don't learn unless you face risk. But you can't dump people off in the risk pool without protections and without graduated guidance in learning how to manage risk. So that whole concept of development linked to risk is part, but it's also important that we're in a protection role as well. So these policies and procedures have to be developed to manage those obstacles. We need flexibility, absolutely flexibility. But the other piece of this is a public institution, and we have to keep things public. We try not to do business that wouldn't look good when it's splashed across the front page of the local newspaper. But then I guess the other thing about obstacles, to overcome obstacles, there's only two ways I know how to do it, and that's you need the time and you need to be persistent. The four big obstacles that we've encountered at ACI, God knows there's been more, but the four big ones that we wrestled with in the early days, December 2017, when we were facing our first student ready to graduate. The issue of, do students with certificates walk across the stage during graduation to shake the hand of the president? He shakes everybody's hands, and then they walk off. And the registrar, of all people, not the president, not the provost, not the deans, not the faculty, and certainly not the students. There were questions about, do students who earn certificates earn graduation? So let's figure out what a certificate is. There was the first obstacle. You can get a certificate in some departments in some colleges by taking 9 clock hours of coursework for which you don't pay tuition. And you get a stamp on something that says you're now certified to do X, Y, Z. And then that's at one end of the continuum. And another end of the continuum, there are certificates that require full-time attendance for 3 to 4 years. And I'm thinking of some of the executive programs in the College of Business, for example. So what constitutes certificate? A lot of folks, a lot of academics don't have a picture of that, where they do understand what degrees mean. So one of the obstacles that we faced was justifying that for the students that we're talking about, a certificate program was a dream come true in what, when I was growing up, was a bachelor's degree. This was, oh my God, I don't know if I could qualify for that. But you earn it and you work at it and you keep working at it, time and persistence, until you do. And we finally won that one. And then when the students walked across, the first student walked across the stage, and the rest of the students that were in the audience recognized, they knew what the Academy for Community Inclusion was. And our students get cheers and recognition from the audience like nobody's business. Now administration and all the staffers in the university understand the role of this kind of a certificate for these particular students. The dorms has been an obstacle for us and continues to be. We had a remarkable plan to phase in dorm living for students as part of the curriculum in community living. And it was not just going to the dorm or not just living in the dorm. They were going to take coursework in the dorms during the summer when there was low attendance in dorms, and integrated into the special ed departments. Undergraduate practicum students were going to be given some employment options to be dorm masters, if you will, during the summer. They were teaching some of their practicum experiences to teach courses there, but also to stay in the dorms. It was very much a progressive, pragmatic approach to learning how to live in dorms. And I thought we were on the money with this one until we met the third or fourth month into the planning process, where the director of dorms for the university somehow interpreted this as a summer camp experience. And, you know, they do 2-week cheerleading camps and they do 1-week science camps. I don't know why science only gets half the time the cheerleaders get, but you know, somehow this as long as this looked like a recreational activity where a bunch of handicapped kids could go to the dorms and have some fun, then they were ready to do this. But as far as a learning experience, plus they wanted us to go to the dorm camp experience that they were offering was on a campus that didn't have any of the academy programs or staff. And so, oh, no, let's start over. So we continue to wrestle with that particular obstacle. Sustained funding, as you might well imagine, since we started on grant work, that continues to be an issue. And little by little, we're making progress with that. The center has been remarkably willing to move forward on trying to find ways to sustain the funding. The paperwork will always be an obstacle. We will always wrestle with that. And dare I say more, with Janice and Drew in the audience, I'll hold back on that one because they'll give me a hard time if I go much further. But I think you know what I mean about the paperwork. And then, of course, do we need to say anything about the pandemic and the obstacles that that's had on developing social relationships, on-campus experiences, and work experiences? As far as faculty buy-in, the first thing I would challenge us to go back, take a step backwards and say, should we really expect 100% buy-in from faculty on anything? Faculty can't agree sometimes on comma versus semicolon. We're gonna talk about restructuring the concept of an outcome in higher ed and who gets in. I think it might be egocentric to those of us who are faculty to think that we should expect faculty buy-in. But there's buy-in beyond faculty. The buy-in from and faculty buy-in is also a sliding scale. You get a little bit versus a lot. I think we have to think of that as a continuum as well. And then we should stack the deck when it comes to getting buy-in. But here are the folks beyond faculty that we really need to look for buy-in. Everybody that steps foot on the university and some people who don't step foot on campus will be involved in decision-making. And it's good to keep in mind that if we get faculty buy-in, God bless, we're 10 steps ahead. But if we don't get complete buy-in, that's okay. There's other folks that'll support us. Excuse me. Some of the things that we've done, you've got to stay in there and you've got to keep hammering at it and offering and appreciating. And there's always coffee. Going to a social discussion over coffee with some folks might be as best as you can get to solve problems before they become problems. I remember one of the first meetings that we had with a professor of chemistry before we introduced, who was also the chair of the university undergraduate programs committee, knowing full well that we were going to be bringing a series of courses that are 2-credit courses with things like names like Be Safe, Stay Safe, and Living in a Dorm. If those are going to be the titles of courses, there's going to be some pushback from some of the traditionalists in the university governance, curriculum committees, and the faculty senate. And a cup of coffee in advance to describe what these courses are about and for whom they're designed does remarkable in accomplishing its buyout, solving the problem before it's created. Where will we be in 5 years? We will continue to work on our core functions, teaching, increasing the employment opportunities, employment training programs. We will increase our size. Like I said, this year we started with 50, we're running, say, around 45 students. As such, we're one of the larger programs in Florida. And we think we'll continue to grow in size. And that's an objective, is to do that. A new curriculum initiative, we're looking at adding a concrete employability and industry certification involving animal care. We've developed new classes in executive functioning that we'll be offering to both academy students, but also to all of those undergraduates. Our colleagues in the Honors College say that their students need enormous support with executive function. We have some research going on that is as good as any place in the nation. We have the Research to Practice Bulletin that I think will be posted at the Hoover site. And we've completed our 3rd one, where we recognize there are 25 different journals that people will never have the time to read. So our staff is doing a very short synopsis of different articles that come out of those journals and make it easy for practitioners to get the point. And I think all three of them thus far will be published on this site. We've got some leadership training, and we will continue dorm life and a new program in post-graduation support And so much to say about that one in so little time to do it. The lessons learned, we can do this. You can do this. When we do it, good things happen, and the good things happen to real people. These aren't concepts. These are real things and real people that gain the product of what gain the positive of what we put into this, but we can't do it all at the same time. Thank you for enduring my my babble here, and I am always available for conversation about any of these or other concepts involving the program. Drew, back to you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. What great information. And we'll move right on to Santa Fe College and Linda Masillo.
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to tell you more about Santa Fe College. So here is how have we changed and what have we learned, which I must say personally for me was a really instructive and fun and interesting process to ponder. So this was my kind of stream of consciousness beginning. When I sat down, I just wrote down exactly what came to mind. We have changed in size, and I'll say more about each of these things as I go along with more details. We have changed in staffing. We have changed in the way that we hold students accountable and what the standards are. And we have changed in how effective we are at what we do. Part of that has been growing our village, both here. I loved your examples, Michael, of your village. Our village is very similar here as well as in the community. We have most certainly upped our use of technology. And there are more opportunities for students, more success, more recognition for our program, and more representation of our program, both here and in the community. So here are some specifics about these changes. First of all, size. When we started, before we were an approved Florida program, we were a very, very tiny TIPSID program. And we started with 2 students, count them, 1, 2, on a very small mini grant. Our new cap is 15. So that's our maximum. We, unlike Michael, we are, I guess, a relatively small program or maybe potentially a medium program. And our attendance has varied. You know, generally year by year, between 10 and 15 is about where we're at now. We're currently kind of down. COVID definitely knocked us on our behinds a little bit in terms of referrals. So we're in a rebuilding period, and that's part of what our team is going to be talking about together. Staffing. We added a job developer, and I know that Paula gave a little shout out to us about this addition. I would say that is the most transformative change that we entertained. And that job developer, who's Beverly Stoudemeyer, and probably is in here somewhere, shout out to Beverly, meets with our students weekly, helps them develop a virtual, mind you, no longer paper, portfolio of all their accomplishments, of a resume, of all their certificates, of photos of them in action, of videos of them in action, of things they've written. I mean, it's a beautiful project that they complete when they leave us and can share it with others and with potential employers, something to really be proud of. She works with them on, yes, job searching, resume building, practicing for interviews. She helps connect them to Voc Rehab. And one thing we learned is do that early on in the process, because there are so many hoops and such a waiting period, and it's such a process. So she helps connect them, and she helps to advocate for them through the process and to navigate that process. She'll go to VR meetings with them. She'll talk with them by phone or Zoom with their VR counselors and help them again to get through that complicated process. She'll help them to decide which vendor they want to pick through VR. So that is, bar none, most significant and helpful change to our staffing. We also, along the way, developed a horticulture program. We are in Gainesville, surrounded by lots of rural areas, and gardening is very, very popular here. Lots of landscape shops and garden shops. And we hired, with this enhancement grant, which also helped us to hire the job developer, we hired a bona fide horticulture specialist. That is his degree. And so he helps to run that program, which we do both here and off-site with a partner across town where there are 75 acres of land for us to grow on and learn organic gardening. Other things about our changes, the successes. So we started with me very concerned about job placement successes, and we've become far more effective, in part because of Beverly. I think in part because of some changes with our local VR office. There are many more vendors now in our community, many more really good vendors in our community. But that said, if I count on the job training as being employed, and I did here with this statistic, and if I count a few entrepreneurs who are intensively marketing their own wares, then we get to this 80% number employed within a year. If I take away those two items and just talk about other type jobs, it's more like 65%. But we're really happy with this number and how far we've come with that. Accountability. So making students accountable has really been key. They complete checklists. I used to do it weekly. It was a bit much. Now it's monthly. So they go through a checklist that reflects all of their goals, and they mark down how they're doing, and they submit that electronically to me. And then we go over it together every month. And I share my perceptions and my feedback with theirs, right? So that we have a dialogue around how they are doing. They also receive from me monthly feedback with our rubric that we rate them on for attendance, participation, for meeting all of their goals, etc. They get that rubric and they get a rundown as to how they're doing with each of these goals and what the number is. And they're having one-on-one meetings for this feedback. So there's a continuous loop of feedback, which leads to change. It's a dialogue. They tell us how they're doing. They tell us what they think about the activities they're engaged in. We tell them how we think they're doing, and we change things if we need to change them. It's a dynamic and flexible plan and an individualized plan. I liked Michael said that there are requirements with flexibility. That is exactly right. We have requirements with flexibility built in. We have really increased our connection and representation in the community, both outside Santa Fe and within Santa Fe. And that's an ongoing process always that we need to grow our village of supporters. But I think that, as I say here, we're represented all over campus and very well known and connected and supported in so many ways. So our students have interned, for example, all over campus. They're ushering in the Fine Arts Hall. They're checking people in the fitness center. They are working in the food bank, storing the food on the shelves. There's a thrift shop on campus where people interested in retail can work, and on it goes. So there's that village of supporters. And then there are people like the police department who come and do safety presentations for us. The counseling center that offers meditation and therapy dogs for us to hang out with. So the list is endless. We're connected all over the place in so many ways. The DRC, the Disabilities Resource Center, that can consult with us and provide us with equipment as needed. the marketing department that helps take photos of us for our webpage and put us out on social media. So we have a big village here, and we've grown our village outside of here in terms of connectedness to the local school board, to the transition folks over in the public schools, to vocational rehabilitation, to UF. UF is actually a big supporter of our program, and they've provided presentations to us. The IFAS extension has done cooking classes for our students. The CARD, Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, has come and done workshops for us on communication and about social media awareness. So lots of people in our village, and this has been a process with time, and it continues to be a process because some of the players are ever changing. New Voc rehab counselors, they don't know about me. I need to get connected with them. New staff here on campus, new faculty. And I didn't mention faculty before, but certainly our students have been represented in and auditing in every division on campus. So I think I mentioned this before, we connect with VR, we make the connection earlier, better, and we keep that communication going with VR. We've grown our opportunities. We have more certifications for students, more internships for students, more options for them that keep changing. We even added last year a follow-up program called Saints Moving On, where we check in monthly with graduates to see how they're doing and say, hey, need any advice, assistance? You know, did you get that job yet? You still have that job? How's it going? And actually once a month, we also get together for recreation. So graduates of the program can get together with current students and have some fun together, karaoke, parties, dance, whatnot. Use of technology, another big change. When I first started in the program, I had everybody create this great big binder of papers. We killed a lot of trees and everything now is virtual. So those portfolios that I mentioned, checklists that they're doing, email, classes that are on Canvas, or submitting assignments on Canvas, we're using lots of technology. So some things that we've learned. We learned that starting small was smart and growing gradually was smart for us. So I would advise you, if you're just getting started, to grow carefully. This is what allows us to be really intensive with the wraparound that we provide. We do a trial period, and I don't know how many other programs do this, but we're housed in adult education. And so students enter into adult education, perhaps saying that they're interested in Project Saint, perhaps not knowing about Project Saint. And after a trial period of at least half a semester, they may be encouraged at that time to apply for Project Saint. And this helps us to make sure that it's going to be a good and successful fit for them. We have found that that works best for us because it is an intensive program. It requires high motivation, persistence. It requires getting along well with others. It requires wanting to do this, liking this, right? So that trial period, which is fairly brief, is really, really helpful. And some students after the trial period end up just staying in adult ed and not coming to Saint, and they're doing plenty of things in adult ed, and others come to Saint. I should say that the trial period is not about grade level, reading ability. You know, we're not eliminating people on that basis, not at all. It's really more about temperament and fit, whether this is going to make sense. Because we've had people who are complete non-readers who have been very successful Saints, and we have found a road for them. But they had that personality, they had that X factor that really worked. They were motivated, they were outgoing, they had social skills, they had what it took. And we found a place for them. I can't say enough about Beverly, and having learned that that was a good idea. And I'll say that's enough about her. Credentials and job pathways. So we keep adding. One of the luxuries of us being in adult ed is that our staff here have a lot of wherewithal, and we have the most wonderful boss in the world to create classes. And these are inclusive classes where adult education students are in there with our students, and our students can also audit classes in general education. But this list these are adult education classes. So we currently have, and it's kind of an ever-growing list, we have safe food handling, we have that horticulture program that I mentioned. We're about to build a greenhouse, so we're going to be also teaching greenhouse methods. Artist Entrepreneur is a really fun one that I started a few years back. Originally, my thought was that these would be people who draw and paint and that sort of thing, but it's really expanded to include all kinds of craftspeople, bakers, musicians. So anyone with a talent that they want to market. Healthcare, we used to just have CNA preparation. And then we added recently direct care. This was again an effort to really open up the possibilities and pathways for our students for whom maybe CNA was going to be too rigorous, but direct care was something that they could do. We've got lots of office skills classes and computer skills. We recently added driver's permit instruction, not the actual on the road, but the permit instruction, and that was due to lots of students wanting that. We also recently added a hospitality class in track. And then we have childcare preparation, which leads to certification. So embedded in all of these pathways are professionally recognized certificates. The safe food handling is a certificate. Customer service is a certificate. The direct care students get a certificate in bloodborne pathogens and HIPAA confidentiality and first aid. So, and the childcare is a certificate. So all of these potentially lead to certification for them. The other thing that we have very much learned, and we did this from the inception, is to teach lots of soft skills. And I think Michael referenced this as well, that they need to learn these communication skills, professionalism, advocacy, personal safety, self-care, problem solving. So that happens in something we call the Saint Workshop, which is an offering that is only for the Saint students with mentors, and where they have presentations relative often to these soft skill topics. Virtual, not paper, I said this before, everything we do, we learn to do virtually. And to embed computer literacy into all of our offerings. And this has really been a benefit to our students. So more advice for you: be seen, be connected, be part of the village. Keep growing your village, keep communicating and advocating for the program and students. Become a campus presence. I used to think it was enough for us to have our own Facebook page. Then I realized, not good enough. I want to be on the Santa Fe page. I used to think it was okay for us to throw something on our own Instagram. No, I want to be on the Santa Fe Instagram and the Santa Fe Twitter. I worked hard to get one of our students selected to be a featured student of the month at Santa Fe and to be profiled on the webpage, right? So that's what I mean. Become a campus presence as much as you can. And include those students everywhere, right? So our students are in inclusive classes. Yes, they're going to clubs, they're at events. Pretty much anything that's happening at Santa Fe, you'll find our Saint students at. There's a Halloween costume party, they're in the costume party. There's a food event in the Oak Grove, they're there. There's a game room where you can shoot pool. Yes, they are there. There's a club rush. There's a volunteer fair. They go to it all. So they are out there, they are engaged, they are visible, they are included. And haven't mentioned mentors before, but mentorship, I always say, is like the heart and soul of the program. The students love their mentors. And our mentors are social, academic, they do it all. They don't just work with one person, they potentially work with lots of people. But boy, do we love our mentors. They are really, again, they're the heart and soul of what we do and so meaningful to the students. So here's something else I learned over time, and I learned this as a parent as well. Work to make your students as independent as possible, and don't hover like a helicopter and micromanage everything they do, right? They need to be finding their own path and making decisions for themselves and becoming more independent. And so this starts at the very beginning with goal setting. We do use the STAR plan, and any of you who are unfamiliar with it, I highly recommend. We've been using that from the inception. That stands for students transitioning to adult roles. And so they're establishing academic goals, vocational goals, self-determination, community and campus engagement, and independent living. So I say to them, we get all up in your business. We want to see, are you doing chores at home? Are you doing laundry? Are you cooking? Are you helping clean? So we look at what's happening at home. We do not have dormitories like Michael, so we concern ourselves with what's happening at home. Self-determination, right? What are some things that you've always wanted? More friends, a girlfriend, to take the bus on my own, to learn to drive, to play a guitar. So we're getting into all kinds of things other than academics and vocational. And we revise those goals as we go with student input, lots of student input and communication. As Michael said, sometimes they may start down one path vocationally and find out, not for me. I had one fellow who thought he for sure wanted to be an auto mechanic and definitely he wanted to learn to change oil. So he actually audited an automotive class in our Voc Tech area at Santa Fe and decided that, oh my God, I don't want to change oil. What a nightmare, so those kinds of exposures help us to revise those goals as we go. Class and club selection for students to decide, right? So this is a mutual decision. We may make recommendations, but they get to decide. Preferred use of facilities. Would you like to play basketball in the gym? Would you like to use the game room? You tell us, what is it that you would like on your schedule? Lunching with peers. We do require that once a week they have a buddy lunch together, but after that we just say, do as you wish. Find who you want to eat with or eat on your own. This is your choice. I used to kind of micromanage more the workshops. I try to get more suggestions now from the students. I would bring in the games for game day. Guess who brings them in now? They do. I say, bring the games you want to play. Movie day. Who makes the suggestions? They do, etc. I ask them to look at the Santa Fe calendar of events. Tell me what's coming. You check and let me know what's coming and what you want to do. Oh, there's a Halloween costume contest. Okay. Would you like to do that? Let's put that on your schedule. So lots of choice making too, as far as we encourage them to cook at home and document. We encourage them to read books on their own and to have other self-determination goals, things like a chore that you're learning at home, etc. But again, they get to make choices as to which of these they will do each month for us and what kind of cooking and what kind of book, etc. They provide their own feedback. Again, it's a feedback loop. We encourage them to navigate the campus independently. Again, I used to be very wedded to the idea that before an event that we had scheduled, let's say they were all going to Club Rush, I would say, you all meet at my office first, so you all know where each other is. I don't do that anymore. If somebody comes a little early, I'll say, do you want to just go ahead on your own and everybody will find you? You know where to go? Yeah, I let them find each other. It's a basketball event for several people. I don't make them all wait for each other. I say, you want to go ahead? Go ahead. Oh, I feel so much better doing that and loosening the reins. Again, I've learned this with my own child. I'm sure some of you can relate. So again, we keep in touch with Saint alumni. This has been a really, really nice addition to our program that we do that and keep tabs on them. And I think that they really, really appreciate the connection. Lastly, I'm going to get to some of the things that I was for sure asked to get to. How did we determine meaningful credentials? Well, we base them on student interest, the local market, right? There are jobs in hospitality, there are jobs in food services, there are jobs in healthcare. And the doability of the credentials, the horticulture and the artist track got added by me because I wanted some streams that were more accessible for some people. And those two in particular are. So doability, we have a range of difficulty and challenge in terms of the credentials and the pathways for students. Major obstacles, I would say, you know, St. isn't for everyone. Occasionally we get a referral of someone for whom it really isn't a fit. And again, this is less about a grade level than it is about a personality. So we've found that trial period really has helped. Job placements initially were an obstacle, but those have burgeoned and changed over time. How did we accomplish faculty buy-in? I personally reach out to division heads, department heads, and faculty about our students. So if a student expresses an interest in audit, I make sure to contact the division head, the department head, and the faculty member. And I introduce the student and let them know about the program if they don't already know about us. Many of them do. And make that introduction and make that connection and assure the faculty that I am there to support. I am there to help with this process. And generally what happens is, and we've been at this for a while, that once they meet the student, done, we're good. Now, I also agree with Michael that, you know, people are invested to a greater or lesser degree, and some are more capable of including our students than others, or more open to it. That is for sure. But I now have a cadre in my village of people who are my go-to faculty. So if somebody says to me, I'm interested in history, I know which history professors are the best to contact. If someone says to me, I want dance, I know which dance professor is the best to contact. So that's a great thing about being at this for a while, is you've got some people who are in your camp with you. Looking into the future, really, we just hope to be ever expanding. I will say that monetarily, we're in a pretty good place because much of what we do in adult ed is otherwise grant funded. Therefore, our students pay only $30 for adult education classes, and then they use part of their scholarship for the mentorship Project Saint piece, but they don't have to pay the tuition rate unless they want to take a full audit, and then they do, and they can use their scholarship for that. So yes, we want to be ever expanding. We want to keep adding to our credentials and to our opportunities, and keep honing that all along the way. And that is it. I will go ahead and stop my share. I'm not sure how I did on time, Drew. Was that about right?
You just went over just a little bit, Linda, and it
Okay,
was very
okay.
interesting. So thank you so much for
You're very
sharing so much
welcome.
about Project Saint. I could listen to folks just talk all day about their programs. I always learn a little bit more and get a better
Diana, how do I
picture. So
make
at
it
this
full
time, we're going to
screen?
move on to Christy Bradford and from McFadder Technical College in Broward County. So welcome, Christy.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Good to see everybody. Our program is a little bit different than the other two that were described because we are at a technical college. And what I've done is, actually, I'm going to share the PowerPoint that we use for marketing our program and recruitment, and give you a little background ahead of time. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes, if you want to go in, if you want to share in presentation mode, down on the either up top from the beginning or down below the little projection screen.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay. That's fine.
Okay, here we go. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me give you some background on my initial writing of this grant. I am in Broward County Public Schools. We're a very large school district. Jayana, we're moving. Very large school district. And I started my career in ESC. And then as an assistant principal at a high school, I was over the ESC department and actually saw one of our SVE classrooms with intellectually disabled students have a small business micro coming. Oh, it's moving forward. Sorry, guys, we're having a little technical glitch. Can you stop it? Okay, sorry. Sorry, my computer's acting up. So in seeing this grant come across my desk, I'm a supervisor now at Career Technical Adult and Community Education. I am a supervisor for the district for workforce education. And when I saw this grant opportunity, I thought of what that SVE classroom actually looked like, where they had that microeconomy. In writing the grant, my idea was, it was called Grow Your Future, was to start a program in our adult education sites, AGE, and have students work towards their GED and develop plants, greenhouse, and actually sell them in the district. We're so large that they would be able to, I think it went all the way to the back, that they would be able to sell plants and have a little economy that way. When we developed it again, what happened was logistically, we have over 30 sites for adult education. It was just not going to be feasible to go ahead and put students in those programs because they're at night. We just couldn't get the group together on that. So in developing this, we have 3 large technical colleges in Broward. And what we decided to do was bring it and sell it to McFadder Technical College. And being at the district level, I'm one step removed because I'm an administrator and had to hire staff and do that. McFadder was exceptional in accepting this and saying, you know, how would this look? One of the obstacles we had in this program was when you're at a technical college, they are under CO, the Council for Occupational Education. They are accredited on how many students get their industry certifications there if they are indeed enrolled. So what happened was they can't just put students in and audit classes. They have to be enrolled, and the concern was students getting their credential. So we immediately worked on getting the credential and talking to the staff of what credential would be feasible for our students to get that we brought into this program. We landed on culinary. The industry certification is ServSafe, which is a state recognized industry cert required to work in any hospitality. Thank you. Okay, and any hospitality program. So with that, we had to work with the technical college then to find staff and the chef to bring students in. So we had a much different way of bringing students in. The district recruited for the technical college originally. We started out very, very small with 2 to 3 students. And we developed a program that they were enrolled in, an AGE program, Adult General Education. And they worked in like a homeroom class with a probationary period that we made an agri-science program. We
Christy,
hired.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but we aren't seeing a PowerPoint. It says that you're sharing your screen, but we aren't seeing.
Okay, Jayana, they're not seeing the PowerPoint. Okay, I'm gonna let my secretary work and I'm gonna keep, let me just fix this, Drew,
Okay.
before I keep going.
Can you see it now?
Okay, can you see it now?
No.
I'm just sharing. Oh,
Okay, hang on. Sorry, guys. Okay,
can you see it now?
can you see it now?
No, maybe if you stop sharing and then reshare.
Stop sharing and reshare. I'm gonna come off my speaker. Try stop share and then do it again.
Yeah, I just did it. And it's showing up there.
That's okay, Christy. Just go ahead. That's
Let
fine.
me go ahead, guys, and next,
That's
I don't want to
fine.
hold everybody up, and then
That's fine.
we'll just go without the PowerPoint. And you know what I can do, Drew? I can submit it so you guys can see it along the way.
Okay.
Sorry for the technical difficulty. So with that, we developed a probationary class that is goes for 1 term, and we hired a retired ag science teacher that came back in and worked with those students. When we brought the students in, we vet them at the district office. We vet them at the district office, but McFadder Technical Colleges actually has the last say in who they bring in. For us, the students have to be
they're completely enrolled in a complete culinary program, exactly what any non-disabled adult would be in. And they have to be able to navigate that campus independently. So in the development of this, it was put your toe in the water in our agri-science program. They actually developed a huge nursery in the back, was absolutely beautiful. And we hired a teacher in our program who's done a phenomenal job as an ESE teacher, but working in those students on their culinary skills and just overall independent living skills, employability skills. We paid the chef part-time to come into the program to work with those students. And then I have a district facilitator who is phenomenal. Her name is Christy as well, Christy Dingman. I think she's on the program right now, and the PowerPoint actually she developed. And she's the conduit between the district office and the technical college. To date, Christy, I hope I'm saying this correctly, I think we've had 18 or 19 students actually earn their industry certification and then become employed in that. So our bar is very high in who we bring into this program at the time. Moving into years later, we are now looking at, and because the students have done so well in this program and the oversight of the staff to make sure they're successful, we are expanding into other technical programs for an industry certification that is a good fit. The student has to show the interest, and then they vet them to see if it would be a doable area. We have students now going into auto mechanics, and they were actually talking about at McFadder, they're going to be adding a logistics certification program, and they'd like to open that up to grow. We're just expanded into Sheridan Technical College, which is in the south end of the district. We're a very large district. We're down in Fort Lauderdale, if you don't know where Broward is. And we're just getting that up and running. That just opened when COVID hit. So enrollment has been very, very difficult. We've just hired a new teacher, Eileen Santiago, who some of you may know her. She was at the Visions Conference, a phenomenal ESE teacher, part-time Broward College professor, and she's going to be targeting working with students in culinary and then expanding. Build Your Future, we were hoping to look into the construction industry area on that. How did we determine the meaningful credentials to offer? Bringing that to the technical colleges, they were open to it, but the students we knew had to earn credential. It could not just be in an auditing kind of program. So culinary seemed to be the easiest of the industry certification and high interest. They had an herb garden there that just kind of built it as we went. We would see ideas and develop, okay, this is an area pathway we can actually go into on that. Obstacles we have encountered. Enrollment is our toughest. We are such a large district, and the criteria we need such independent functioning, like very much like applying to college on who gets admitted to UF and FAU. We have to be able to vet students that can do that. Not everyone does, and some do very, very well. But when I hear other programs talk about someone who didn't have a high reading level or that kind of thing, we are in a very tight range on who we can bring into that. But that's been the success of the program of putting them through that. We are working with our district ESC office and outside agencies to try to recruit. It's really logistics on getting someone, Sheridan is down in Hollywood and that kind of thing. For us, because we're so large and this is a district initiative placed at a technical college, it doesn't necessarily belong to McFadder, although McFadder and Sheridan's name's on it. At the end of the day, I'm the director and have to oversee that, but the boots on the ground are really this phenomenal staff that has to go and be the conduit back and forth. But we are the ones that have to drive moving it. McFadder has some amazing staff that has really taken it on and owned it, but the students are fully integrated. They in every way. One of the interesting areas is, adults with intellectual disabilities, a 504 plan, are able to go and enroll in technical colleges on their own. They don't have to be part of this program. So I know at McFadder, we had students that were on a 504 plan that enrolled in classes. And what was reported is our students were performing so much phenomenally beyond, not just academically, but behaviorally, because they had this amazing support to get them to that level. Even their staff in giving the ServSafe industry cert assessment has done reading questions and that kind of thing to get the kids through. So they've really bought into that. But you know, it's one of those, be careful what you ask for. When you come to a big technical college and say, guess what, I wrote a grant for you for ESC adults. Aren't you excited? You know, that's a big step to go. And they've been really gracious in coming forth and really proud of you know, what we've done. We actually have an interim superintendent, Dr. Vicki Cartwright, who was actually over, I just learned, transition programming in Orange County. So I'm excited because I think we'll get even more support on that. How did I accomplish faculty buy-in? I agree with Michael said, you don't get 100%, but everyone we've come across, we have gotten them on board. It's tough because we have to make sure that we oversee and maintain the compliance. It is a lot of compliance, a lot of emails, not gonna lie. Love UCF, but it's a lot of emails. So making sure that is taken care of on our end. So the burden is not on them, but to just make sure that we are maintaining the funding. And funding has been fine. To go through a culinary technical program is a couple of $1,000s. So the $7,000 scholarship the students get, we actually tied into our bookstore and put a package together with their uniforms and books and bought knives and things they would need to be able to navigate the program. But using up all the funds for that student has been challenging. I didn't feel comfortable if a student leaves to you know, give them a couple of $1,000s. So we've sent that back to UCF. Those have been the learning areas that we've had to navigate. And the last question was conclude with looking into future and in the next 5 years. We just went into the build your future. What I would love to see is that we expand into multiple areas like we are now, multiple technical areas, with the idea of getting a real industry certification for the students. We've been successful in that. What happens to our students who don't make that? They have what we give them a little mini credential. We have employability skill trainings that we do online. They are enrolled in ABE, Adult Basic Education, to improve their academic level and that kind of thing. And we've even had students request to move to another area. One student requested, it wasn't a good fit, but so just like a college student changing majors, that is, you know, that's what we hope for them to do, and they function you know, independently. And I'm sorry about the PowerPoint. We will get it out to you, but any questions for me? I'm going to be brief today.
At this time, we're going to have a question and answer. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, or if you would like to write in the chat window, which is the speech icon down at the bottom of the Zoom window, feel free and just simply state who you're asking the question, whether it be for McFadder Technical College and Christy Bradford, or for Florida Atlantic University and Michael Brady, or for Santa Fe College and Linda Masillo.
Drew, can you hear me?
Yes. But not now. I can't hear you now, Janice. Christy, could you tell me a little more about the employability skills training credential?
Yes, we purchased, and I believe they're still using this. I'm going to have to check with Christy Dingman because I'm not as day-to-day involved. From Essential Education, that is a company that, if you're familiar with adult education, they provide GED Academy training, online software. They had micro-credentials on employability skill training online. You could do financial literacy and I think resume development. We also use, so we've used that in the past, and then you finish that program, you purchase the seat, I think it was $15 a seat, and end up with a credential in that area. We've also, the state of Florida, FLDOE provides, Cooter is a company that they offer My Career Shines, and that's an adult ed, and they also have a K-12 program on employability skill training, that's free from the state, resume development, and we have used that as well.
Thank you. Other questions?
Hey, Drew, I will send the PowerPoint to you, so anybody who would like ours, which gets an overview, and I apologize for the technical problem.
All right, the PowerPoint will be posted in Whova. And again, the Whova app is going to be up for a couple of weeks beyond the Institute. And so you'll find copies of all of the PowerPoints in the sessions in Whova. If you're having any difficulty with Whova, both Iris Neal and Claudia Bello Punto, both are just, they're amazing with Whova, and we hope that you're finding it enjoyable to use as a conference app. So I'd like to just take this time to thank our three presenters for just sharing, and for the programs that you have developed for the students that have gained employability skills and who are employed because of what you're doing. And I'm not going to say that I hope that you learned something, because I know if you were listening, you learned something through this presentation, because it was great information from each of you, learning from a university, from a state college, and from a technical college. So thank you all for being here.